Please don't forget subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified of new daily videos.
I remember the early days of OmniCorp Analytics vividly. It wasn't just a job, it was my brainchild, a significant chunk of my life's work. As one of the original developers, I'd poured my soul into building our core data algorithms, working directly with our visionary founder, Henry. He trusted me implicitly, granting me a unique role, flexible hours, and a substantial equity stake that was meant to vest over a long horizon. It was a handshake deal, later formalized, that acknowledged my irreplaceable contribution. Things changed when Henry decided to retire and hand the reins to his son, Garrett. Garrett was everything Henry wasn't: arrogant, short-sighted, and obsessed with appearances. He saw my bespoke contract and my deep-seated influence within the company as an archaic relic, a thorn in his side. He wanted to modernize everything, which I quickly realized meant pushing me out without having to pay for my hard-earned equity. The setup was slow and insidious. Garrett started by marginalizing me, excluding me from meetings I'd always led. Then came the whispers from Liam and Chloe, two junior developers Garrett had clearly cultivated. They'd complain about my unconventional hours, subtly imply I wasn't pulling my weight, despite the fact I was often solving problems in an hour that took them a day. I even caught Liam forwarding an internal chat where Garrett called my contract an archaic burden, and discussed ways to restructure my position into obsolescence. I knew what was happening. Garrett wanted me to quit, to walk away from my equity and severance. But I wasn't just a developer. I was a systems architect with administrative access to nearly every facet of OmniCorp's digital infrastructure. I had spent years building the very framework they relied on, and I also knew where all the bodies were buried. Over the years, I'd seen corners cut, data privacy regulations ignored in the rush for growth, security protocols bypassed for convenience, and most damning, financial projections wildly exaggerated to attract investment. My plan began to form the moment I saw that chat log. I started meticulously documenting everything: every snide remark, every fabricated performance review, every email from Garrett instructing managers to tighten the screws on my role. I wasn't just saving emails. I was screenshotting company chat logs, recording audio of particularly hostile meetings, all within legal bounds for a one-party consent state, and archiving versions of our code that showed the shortcuts they were taking. My brother-in-law, Robert, a corporate lawyer, was my silent counsel. He advised me to keep my head down, continue performing, and let them make their move. The day they fired me was almost a relief. Garrett, flanked by HR, tried to frame it as performance-related, citing vague metrics and the fabricated complaints from Liam and Chloe. I sat there, calm, collected, and said nothing more than I understand. The next day, Robert served OmniCorp with a lawsuit for wrongful termination, harassment, and breach of contract, complete with binders full of irrefutable evidence. Garrett's face, I heard, went purple. He tried to fight it, but Robert had them dead to rights. They settled, agreeing to a significant severance package and a full, accelerated buyout of my remaining equity. It was enough to secure my financial future for years. But that was just the beginning. I had gone after Garrett's money. Now I was going after his empire. With my exit package secured, I shifted focus to the mountains of evidence I had gathered on OmniCorp's operational misconduct. I compiled meticulous reports detailing their systemic violations of data privacy laws like GDPR and CCPA, exposing the gaping security vulnerabilities in their cutting-edge platforms, and highlighting the blatant misrepresentations made to investors regarding the capabilities and security of their AI. I anonymously tipped off the FTC and the SEC, providing them with encrypted drives full of documented proof. Then, I reached out to Sarah, a former colleague who had become a respected tech journalist. I fed her enough verified, damning information to launch a full-scale investigation into OmniCorp's practices. The fallout was swift and devastating. Federal regulators swooped in, freezing assets and launching probes that revealed the true extent of OmniCorp's fraudulent practices and negligence. Sarah's exposé hit the digital press like a meteor, detailing how OmniCorp had routinely compromised user data and misled its investors, directly implicating Garrett. Investor confidence evaporated, funding dried up, and a class action lawsuit from aggrieved users quickly followed. The company, which Garrett had boasted was his legacy, spiraled into crisis. To add a final, exquisite touch, I had also uncovered Garrett's elaborate scheme of siphoning company funds into shell corporations for his lavish personal expenses, disguised as strategic investments and client entertainment. I sent an anonymous, detailed dossier to the Internal Audit Committee, and more pointedly, to his wife, Eleanor, who I knew was savvy about their family's trusts. I later learned Garrett was not only facing potential criminal charges for fraud, but also a brutal, high-profile divorce that stripped him of whatever personal wealth remained. OmniCorp Analytics, the company I helped build, was ultimately forced into a fire sale, bought out for pennies on the dollar by a competitor primarily interested in its intellectual property, not its disgraced leadership. Garrett, who thought he was a titan, was left with nothing but crippling debt, a ruined reputation, and the contempt of everyone who once respected his family name. And Liam and Chloe. They were among the hundreds of employees who lost their jobs when the company collapsed. Garrett learned the hard way that when you try to dismantle someone's life, they just might take your entire world down with them. Justice, it turns out, is a dish best served digitally, with regulatory oversight.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to like it. And please do subscribe to support the channel.